Pondering God, Chapter 82. What's in it for me? While reading in the book of Acts the other day, I came across this throwaway line in Acts chapter 25, verse 19. But they simply had some disagreement with him about their own religion and about a dead man, Jesus, whom Paul asserted to be alive. I find that thought fascinating. Paul had been arrested for teaching about the Christ and being a part of the way, and was now before the governor and King Agrippa, giving his rebuttal to the charges against him. Apparently, Christianity wasn't quite the big deal then that it is today. Festus laid out the case against Paul before Agrippa, and his comments show his ignorance of and how little Christianity had spread at the time. But why should it have spread at all? Christians were arrested and killed throughout the Roman Empire. What's not appealing about that? But there were even more considerations for those who might be on the fence. Let's look at a conversation that might have taken place back in the first century. Chris is interested in Christianity, but has some questions for Paul, who's 100% sold out. If you've seen the skit with Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney on Saturday Night Live, this interaction may seem familiar. Chris says, "Paul, I'm thinking about becoming a Christian, but I have some concerns. For example, I understand that your leader, Jesus, was executed on a cross. Is that true?" Paul says, "Yes, that's true, Chris. He was nailed to a cross and then raised from the dead on the third day." Chris says, "Okay, I also heard that Jesus told his followers, 'You'll be hated by all on account of my name.' Is that true?" Paul answers, "Yes, Chris, that's true. And I also heard that Jesus said that to follow him, we would have to hate our father and mother compared to our love for him, or we couldn't be his disciple. Did Jesus say that?" Paul says, "Yes, Chris, that is what he said." Chris says, "And I heard that he said that whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Did he say that?" "Yes, he did, Chris." Chris says, "Well, someone told me that Jesus said, 'For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it.' Is that true?" Paul nods his head and says, "I'm afraid so, Chris." By now, a frown forms on Chris's brow, and his countenance falls. With his voice just above a whisper, he says, "One last question. I heard that Jesus said, 'No one of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions.' Did he say that too?" Paul places an arm around Chris's shoulder and says, "Chris, Jesus said all those things. You seem a little discouraged. What's the matter?" Chris says, "Well, I was asking you all these things to find out about Christianity. I suppose I was counting the costs, as Jesus said to do. I really wanted to find out what's in it for me." It is amazing that Christianity grew at all in the first century, and that it still does today. There are so many costs to consider and sacrifices to be made in following Jesus. What Paul would tell Chris, as the conversation continued, is that the benefits of following Jesus far outweigh the costs. And yet, there are many today who don't see eternal life with the Father as being worth the sacrifices. They can't look past the here and now. But God continues to call those who belong to him, and many like Chris do weigh the costs and decide to follow Jesus. So, what's in it for you? What is so appealing about following that dead man Jesus? Followers of Jesus are never promised a life filled with sunshine and roses. In fact, we're promised that the road will be rough. The answer to Chris's question is this: Jesus is what's in it for you. You get his love, grace, forgiveness, leadership, peace, friendship, counsel, and ultimately the hope of eternal life in a world filled with hopelessness. Count me in.